YouTube. Doing some soldering here. The orange connector, or brown connector you can see there with the wires on it, is a ISO harness adapter. It's the connection to the vehicle harness that goes out to the speakers. I use these so I don't have to hack into the factory harness to install stereo. What I'm doing here is replacing the feeder leads that go from the amplifier to the connector, because the ones that were there, I had them wired in series, but yeah, I couldn't get the power out of the amplifier when it was running like that, obviously. So just recreating the connections with some new wire, and yeah, just sort of a bit of a instructional video maybe. I'm just burying the wires at the moment. I need 4 of them, one for each channel. So what I've done is I've got a length of wire, just folded it up, halved it twice, and just cut it so that they're roughly the same length. These old connections have got to go, but I need to leave enough left on the connector to use the connector, because I need to have enough room to solder the new connection on, and also to put some heat shrink around it as well. The bullet type connectors, or those types of connectors, I'd probably recommend against them if you need them for a permanent install. I don't like them. They're not a very tight fit. If you crush them too tight, you can damage the actual wire instead, and it creates a weak connection anyway. And what I found is a lot of the times they'll look okay, but then you'll touch it and the wire will come out, or the wire won't be there, which I've had happen on these connections a couple of times, which is why I'm now replacing them. What I'm actually doing here is stripping. So it's out of camera now, but I need to strip the leads, so I've got some room to solder onto. But I want them to be roughly the same length. It's just tidier, and it kind of just makes it a little simpler to do up. Now you'll see you've got your different color codes there. You've got your green, white, grey, and purple. They're for your individual speakers. But what you also need, you'll also notice is they've got stripes on one side and no stripes on the other side. So you'll have green, or as a solid green, and then you'll have green with a black, what they call a trace. The black trace is your negative to your speaker, and the non-traced one is your positive. You need to make note of that when you're wiring your speakers up, so that you don't hook them up out of phase, because you've got to keep them in phase, otherwise you just get a weird sound effect. You don't get the right bass response or anything like that, and it just sounds weird. But anyway, so what we're doing here, I'm just tinning the ends that have just stripped, just to keep them all straight or clean edges. So you can do this 2 ways. You can tin it like this, you can tin the other end, and then sit them next to each other with the soldering on, and they'll solder on. Or you can twist them together first. It's kind of 6 to 1, half the other. I mean, it works either way. This way I can make cleaner connections and a lot quicker. So that's why I'm doing it this way. You've also got to tin the other end, and what I'm also using there, that black stuff, that's heat shrink tube. I'll use this instead of insulation tape to protect the ends and keep them from coming apart. Take a bit of strain off the actual solder connection as well. Heat shrink tube's amazing. What I'm doing here, you have to get this on to the conductor before you solder it together, otherwise you just won't get it on. So cut off your two bits, push it over the wire, tin the ends of the wire out. You can tin it beforehand, which I'd probably recommend doing so you don't overheat the wire. As the wire gets hot while the heat shrinks in there, the heat shrink will shrink before you're ready. And we're just tidying up the ends so they're not too long. Then yeah, in these wires I'm using the one with the red trace as the negative to match up with the black trace on the harness adapter. Now you might find it a bit fiddly to get that on there because the wire just wants to push it over, so get something to put on it. Nice. And then just solder the connections together. Give it a second to cool down. Then you get your heat shrink tube. If your wire's still hot, don't do this. Wait until it cools down. Just slip the heat shrink tube up. And what you'll need to do is find yourself a you can use a hot air gun, you can use the end of the soldering iron, or if you just want a quick and dirty job, get the old cigarette lighter out. Dun, dun. One of those. Let's get the others out of the road so you don't contaminate the joint. Just heat it up. It'll get hot and it'll start shrinking over the wire. Bit of a press down. You don't have to do that, but there you go. So there's one done. And then basically just continue that with the other ones. It gets a lot quicker and easier once you get past the first one. Now, some wire you might find a bit hard to strip like that. You sort of need a couple of fingernails. Doesn't work. You can get the side cutters in there, just give it a bit of a nick. Spray them apart. That's your ends. Hard to see there, but just using the soldering iron to hold it in place, so you can use it sort of like a bench rest or something. You just sort of get the wire and the solder in there and off it goes. as you can see, just repeating the process, cutting the wire, stripping the wire, tinning it, getting a couple of pieces of heat shrink tube, slipping that over the wire, um, trimming up the joints, then just making sure that, again, the traces are in the right spot. It's up to you which way you do your traces. It's just a case of remembering which way you did it so that it's always the same, and that your speakers all fire in the same direction. You can play around with phasings and things if your car's long enough to phase your subwoofer to your fronts and things like that, depending on how far away they are. But generally, small cars, 4 speakers, have them all the same. Negative, negative, positive, positive, and just be done with it. It's a lot simpler, and it sounds generally the best way to do it. Connector's a bit easier to keep in place the more wires that are on it too, because you can actually use the wires that are already there to stop it moving. It's almost like cheating. Again, heat shrink tube, get them in place, get the lighter out, heat them up, let them shrink down, and rinse and repeat basically. And there you go, all wire soldered. As an extra, just to make it properly done, I decided I'm going to use some bigger heat shrink tube to cover the whole connection point. This stuff here is double walled, waterproof tube. It's got a lining in it, which I believe is pretty much the same glue substance they use in those hot glue sticks. And when it shrinks over it, as it heats up, the glue liquefies and then coats everything, so that it becomes a watertight seal. It's impervious, and it also sticks to the cabling, adding extra strength to the cable as well. Why not? I mean, worst thing in car audio is when connections don't stay together, or something yanks on it and rips it out, and you don't want that. So just tighten your connections up, cover them up with something, and this stuff here surprisingly shrinks down quite a lot. I mean, it'll shrink down to not even half the original opening size. It's crazy, but it works well. Really, really well, actually. The only thing to watch for when you use your fingers to squish it down is hot glue. When it's hot, is a liquid, and if it sticks to your fingers, well,